Got my hearing checked
Well, you did.
for the first time in, I'm gonna guess, 25 years.
Wow. How'd that
Yeah.
go?
Um, both ears are pretty much the same, and basically all good except in the very tippy top range, I am a little under normal, just barely.
Hmm.
So what this means is we check in a year, and if it's getting worse, then there's a thing. But if it's the same, we're probably good for now.
Okay.
Don't need hearing aids or anything. This one was totally my idea. Nobody suggested, but that's how paranoid I get about, like, it's just weird how many stories I know of like real messed up relationships and families, all because one person in the family was unwilling to admit they were losing their hearing. I experienced it firsthand. My dad, a lot of pain and anguish happened in my family because my dad was in denial about losing his hearing over
Mm.
many decades. But I was like, yeah, my dad was weird. And then I've heard so many other stories. It's all, I hate to say it, it's almost always the father, and it's almost always the patriarch in a family. But not always. But it's just someone, and they're just unwilling, and they get real frustrated, and people get real frustrated at them for years. And we all know, but we have to pretend because if you suggest it, they get real defensive about it. Why are you suppressing giggles so hard?
That's, I'm just remembering, sorry, I'm just remembering the last time I had my hearing checked. This was a few years ago.
And
Well, I had it checked
did
because
you ruin a family while you were on the way in?
no, no, no. It was my idea to get it checked because I couldn't hear people, particularly if there was white noise like around, like if the
Yeah,
we
yeah.
had we purchased a thing to plug into the TV and stuff that I would wear while we all watched television because I couldn't hear it. I would
Hmm.
need it turned up. So this was a real problem. So I had went and got it checked, and they said no, there's nothing wrong with it. There was nothing wrong with it. I said there is something wrong with it. I Why would I go to all this trouble and all this stuff? And I know I can't hear people, but it's usually when there's background noise. I admit that, and that's
Yeah, and that can be a thing. That's a specific type of
yeah.
issue.
And they said, well, they said your hearing could be worse than it used to be, is what they told me. But what was funny about it was eventually I got to the point where I was saying, well, I don't know, my wife's constantly saying she's saying stuff and I don't hear her. And they just sort of looked at each other with this knowing look. Like, oh, no,
And
no, no.
and
Well, it's not like that at all. I think they thought it was like that though.
no, like, corroborating anecdote. When I'm telling everybody about, I am now at the point where I have a note in the notes app that just called doctor, and it's between my like quarterly visits, like a shit I need to talk to him about because I will forget otherwise. And so the
Mm.
hearing thing was on there. And this visit, as often happens, I had a med student, and they were at the stage in their process where they come in and they ask me a bunch of doctor questions, and then the doctor comes in and they tell them what they asked and what I answered. And I think it's she must be like first year or something. Like, this is, I've had ones where like they do the doctoring and then tell him later, but this one was like just practicing asking the questions and stuff. But so it comes up in this, and so she's in there when it's happening. And my doctor there, I love my doctor. I would, you can pry my doctor from my cold dead hands. He has a couple of idiosyncratic things where like, because he's very good at keeping up on stuff, and he will tell you what the latest, like, right now studies are suggesting we should run these tests when you're this age or something. So he has a lot of that. But there are sometimes just things that I'm like, and he's also glad he doesn't have to do it yet. Like, I have a thing that he personally is really wanting to wait as long as possible to put his finger up my butt. Like, not that he should want to, but it's just like my dad had prostate cancer, and like we talk about it, and every time there's like, well, the new study on the, we're not to the like time that everybody should, but he just keeps sort of being like, ah, and I'm just like, I think he just doesn't, and he knows he's gonna have to eventually, but he's like holding off as long as he can. But so I tell him this, I'm like, I want to get the hearing thing, and I swear to God, his response is he looks at me and he's just like, okay, but like if there's something wrong, all that's gonna happen is you're gonna have to get hearing aids. Like I don't know where that came from. I'm just like, A, yeah,
Right. Like, yeah, I know that.
and B, unless you have a new third option I'm aware of besides get hearing aids or be fucking deaf. What I knew that's how the process.
Yeah, that's we
Like,
pretty much
I
all
want to get
know.
my hearing checked, but I listen to me carefully. Look at my face here. No hearing, no matter what happens, no fucking hearing aids. You have to promise me that before we start this hearing exam. Like, I don't know what his issue was, but
That's funny.
I talked about the same thing with the dads that have ruined families because they won't admit their hearing, and how this is the thing for me. And I have told my wife, I said, the day you say, I think you're starting to lose your hearing, I will go get a hearing test. I'm like, but she hasn't said that. What happened is I'm noticing that I have trouble hearing her sometimes. And I'm like, I think she's mumbling or not. But then the real tip off recently is I'm easily startled. And it can happen. She gets this too sometimes. We're in a different part of the house. We come in, we scare the other one. And so a thing now is we make noise. Like you come in and knock on the wall on the way or something like this. And I've had far too many times recently where she walks in, I freak out, my heart jumps into my throat, and I'm just like looking at her, and she'll look at me and she's like, I made so much noise. I don't. And so now I'm like, maybe it's a thing. I have decent enough insurance. Let's find out. It was such a big deal, and they thought it was so hilarious to tell me how I should be so proud for deciding for myself that I couldn't hear my wife. Like that's to be able to admit, like it's a thing. Like
Yeah.
that I'm a husband who can say, there may be something wrong with my hearing. I can't, like that apparently doesn't happen. And so it's a big deal because apparently we all just don't listen to our wives and we're unwilling to admit that. This is where you and I run into problems because we're not really guys, but people assume we're guys and they'll say things and every guy is like, okay, yeah, but we're like, huh? No.
Yeah, like I'm sure they were thinking, oh, he's watching a football game and he's zoning out, but I don't do that. I don't even watch television at all without her watching with me, and we're usually talking about it. So yeah, there it was, and I knew usually when I couldn't hear her, there was water running. There was some white noise going on almost every single instance. So I knew I even told them that before we started. I said, this is a white noise, I can't hear things problem. But well, they said there was nothing wrong with except they said, and I hear my ears ring pretty much constantly, by the way.
Well, this is what I was wondering, if it's a tinnitus thing.
Well, okay, so they said that. They said I had, and they pronounced it that way. How'd you just pronounce it?
Tinnitus is when we were in our day, it was tinnitus.
Yeah.
We switched it at some point, and I think Tony Randall was forcing us all to say tinnitus in those PSAs that he did, and then once he died, we could all say it the right way.
Well, right. I mean, and it should be pronounced the way you're pronouncing it because, in usually itis in anything is like an inflammation or something, and it's not that. That's not what the itis in the word stands for. So we should all be pronouncing it the way you did because that's the proper pronunciation.
Most people should all be doing things the way I do.
But for some reason, I can never remember how it's pronounced properly. But they told me I had that.
When we were younger, everybody said tinnitus.
Yeah,
Tony Randall forced us all.
No, that's.
And my dad, the doctor told my dad he had tinnitus. That's how we all said that.
Like tonsillitis, right? Is that the inflammation of your tonsils?
Well, it sounds very medical.
But it's not an inflammation thing. The itis means something else.
Tinnitus sounds like one of the lesser known suitors in the Odyssey.
But anyway, so they kind of made a joke out of it, right? And Abby came in and we were all kind of sitting around laughing about it. But I mean, I think when they saw us interacting, they could see that no, we didn't really have the kind of relationship where I would just be ignoring her watching a game or something. I mean, I think they could see that we both thought this was serious and real. So
Yeah, and
I don't know. I don't know what
you and I
means.
don't fit into a lot of these common things, and we get very confused. In our house, it's not like we like. I'm sure you are like this because you're weird, but it's not like we listen to everything that we talk a lot. I talk a lot, and a lot of the things I talk about are not interesting to anyone. But my wife lives with me and has to listen, but she doesn't sometimes, and like that's nobody pretends that somebody's hearing is bad or anything. Like
Right.
she'll be like,
Yes.
I wasn't listening. You would not shut up about that video game that you don't even play that I've never seen. It's
No.
not that interesting. I caught a couple bits,
Yeah.
but no, I don't know what you were saying. She won't be like, you got to speak up or
Yeah. Right. No.
like we ignore each other like every good married couple, but we're
Sure.
just like, I was ignoring you because you're boring.
Well, I mean, yes, this does happen where I'm sorry, I was distracted by something else, or I didn't understand a word you just said. We'll just admit that. We're not going to pretend
Yeah.
we just couldn't hear. If I say I didn't hear it, that is what I truly believe happened. I didn't hear it, or it was well. And another problem is that we have is we both can kind of like mumble to ourselves sometimes. Like we didn't really expect anyone to hear it or respond or anything. So sometimes the reason I could hear her making a noise like she was talking, but I didn't think she was talking to me. And probably 80% of the time she's not, because I will sometimes say, "Are you talking to me?" "No, talking to the onion," or whatever it is. So, so there's reasons to not pay attention to everything that comes
Yeah.
out of either one of our mouths or whatever. But so we know the difference between something like that versus, "Hey, sorry, I wasn't paying attention," versus, "I honestly cannot hear what you're saying." Because if you're not, I mean, why would I go? Why would I go? I made the decision to go here and have my hearing tested if I didn't believe it. I mean, if I'm lying, I'm not going to commit like that.
No, but they're also like, yeah, he made the decision. Yeah, she helped him figure out to make like they're
Yeah,
assuming
well,
so
that's true
much.
too. Right, right. I think there was some of that,
Um,
but it was so funny. The whole thing was hilarious to me. But I still have a
the
problem with hearing things with if there's white noise. I do. I don't. If it's in my head, then it's in my head. But it's a thing.
well, and like I don't think they're doing a lot about that because I'm not as near as I can tell. That's the part they haven't cracked super well. Like hearing aids, often people don't like them because it just makes everything louder, and so background noise issues become worse, and so they may not sort of be dealing with that because they don't have an answer for what to do about it anyway.
Well, and see,
I
that's
know
another thing.
specifically with tinnitus there are things because there are devices that will make essentially a counter noise in your head that eventually
Mm.
your brain sort of balances it out.
Well, and I didn't notice anything they did that seemed to test that problem. Right? Like
Yeah.
I don't remember a test where there was
No, I don't
no,
think
or
I
you know
had
what I
that
mean?
either.
And then they said, "Well, can you hear this?" I mean, like I didn't feel like my claim was even really being tested. Like, okay, so, and I think it's what you're saying is, and I have heard about that where people like, well, all the hearing aid does is it amplifies all the noises, and my problem is not the loudness of sounds, it's the mixture of sounds and how
It's
they
yeah.
how
And
or
I mean I
whatever.
don't want to say there's nothing, but that seems to be the nut that's really being tough to crack because yeah, I'm hearing no pun intended, more and more people who get hearing aids and they're like it helps in these situations. In these situations, it's much worse. And it frequently has to do with background noise. And to the degree that like they have to be very sort of selective about when they have them in and not and stuff like that.
But the one thing that they were testing, which should have maybe covered some of this, is because when it's white noise or something that's making it hard for you to hear, the explanation for that, the scientific explanation, is that the white noise is canceling out certain frequencies, right? That
Hmm.
they can, and that they can test with their normal tests. Like, is he hearing this frequency? Is he hearing that frequency? Which apparently I was, but I don't know if, but like but I was hearing them like through headphones when there was no other sound, just those frequencies, right? I think the problem is when there's something else in the room that's blocking those frequencies. That's when it's hard for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
But I didn't see how they were testing that. I don't
There's actually other thing parts you, if you were aware of it, it would invalidate. So they couldn't tell you. There are a lot of secret cameras in it.
know.
Since I haven't done it in so long, I wasn't used to being like locked in a bathysphere for
Mm,
the process. Like you are
mm.
all sealed up and she's in a different room with a window and I'm just waiting for them to flood it with gamma rays. It was a lot. My
And-
favorite one in our household with the hearing is one of us will say something and the other one will go, "What did you say?" And then the first one will be like, "I know it sounds, just hear me out, okay? It's not like that. I meant," and they'll start explaining and then the other one has to go, "No, I genuinely didn't
Didn't
hear
hear
the
you.
words.
Yeah, right.
This was not me being shocked by what you said. This was," and they'll be like, "Oh, okay." And I'm like, "But clearly whatever you said, you're not 100% behind because you were already backpedaling." So,
Yeah, we get that one
so
too.
I'll take that in mind when you say it again now.
So our granddaughter has this habit where sometimes you'll say something or ask her a question, and she'll, it seems random because whatever it is you're saying doesn't seem to be like strange or controversial or anything else, but she'll just look at you and go, "What?" Like with this look on her face. Like, and all you can do is think, what did I say that was so disturbing to this child? And so we were saying to her mom, "Is like, where did she get this? Is she doing this at your house too?" "Oh yeah, all the time. I don't know where she got it." And then then they were all over, and Delmer's like sitting on my lap, and he says something kind of unintelligible to his mom, and she goes, "What?" Said, "Yeah, just like that. That's what Freya does." And then the look on her face was like, "Ah, crap, it's me."
We love that. I've told this before, I'm sure. It's one of
uh,
the great stories, but there was when there was only one child next door at this point. Or the other one was small enough that they were basically an object, but whatever. Um, and the little one was done and she could walk now and stuff, so she's doing her stuff and she can do Netflix, but just the kids, like she kind of knows enough that she can go in the room, she knows how to turn on the TV and pick the kids thing and whatever. um but it wasn't working and so she comes in and she's like, I can't, it Netflix won't do what I say or something. And then she stomps her foot and holds up her hand and just goes, "God damn it." And we, almost all of us, are just like, hands have to be here. We can't, this is not, if we give in to laughing, this is gonna be her thing now.
yeah,
But
reinforcing
then
behavior.
all
There
of
we
us
go.
turn and don't look at her. We look to the one other person, her father, who is just bright red, because we all know that phrase in that tone exactly. And so all of us in the room are like, we know where she heard that one. And he's just like, and his face is just purple. And then somebody got up and helped her with the thing. But we were just like,
Yeah.
uh huh, uh huh.
Yeah, it's pretty funny when a kid does something and was like, "Where did they get that?" And then, uh,
But I also knew somebody who got on some meds for mental health issues the day they saw their 3-year-old come in frustrated and fling their shoes across the room and hit a wall. And she's like, "Oh shit, I think I did that." Like she realized I have issues and my child is imitating those.
imitating them. Yeah.
I should do something about this.
Yeah. So the grandkids are huge imitators. I just don't even remember that among kids when I was, that I observed growing up. And kids imitate, of course, but like to the degree that these kids do, I'm like, wow, this is, I mean, people don't. I think people don't think about it really enough. You know how much kids are picking up, and even if they don't imitate it, it's getting in there, right? And
Yeah,
you
yeah,
never
yeah.
know when in their life it's going to come back or come up. I don't know. People don't really think about it that much, but I mean, you can't
I
be thinking about that all the time. But
in my old age, I'm really fascinated by picking out sometimes physical characteristics, but things in children that are their parents. Like I like doing like, oh, my two nieces pose for pictures using the exact same smile that their mom used. Like there's just something about it that, or like, oh, you do that, and yeah, so's your dad. Like I find that stuff very interesting. So but yeah, I think most people don't think about it, and especially not with you. That's also the thing, is some changes are so hard to see when you're in close. If you see the kid every day, you just are used to things that somebody else is like,
mhm.
hey,
That's right. That's right.
so
Yeah, I see things in the kids that Alex used to do all the time. Their mom, Alex, all the time. And sometimes they're uncles. So it's like
mm, mm,
or Abby's siblings. So, things that I don't remember the kids doing, but I know that their other relatives did, because people don't think about that sometimes either, how they behaviorally they can get stuff from like grandparents that seems to have skipped a generation. It's
yeah.
really interesting. It's
And it
super
and it
interesting.
becomes weird because it becomes nature and nurture. There's so
Yeah,
much
right.
stuff.
It is
I
so interesting.
Some of my mental health issues like are sort of diagnosed coming down through my maternal line. We've got a history of certain diagnoses and
Mhm.
things, and also certain, and all of that makes sense. But I've recently had a few things that I just sort of associate, because they are things that I think of as like anxiety issues, which is a lot of what that is. But I recently had a couple ones where I'm like, the way I've been behaving, my dad used to do that a lot. And now he's dead and he never was diagnosed or anything. But suddenly I'm like, maybe this is a couple different. Maybe it's not all what I think it is coming
Yeah,
through.
right.
And
Yeah.
and then the thing gets in the way of, like, if it's you and I, we find this very interesting academically. Whether or not it will help to process it is a different issue.
No, that's
Like
true. Yeah.
I've occasionally back in the day with my therapist, I'll be asking stuff, and eventually I'm just like, this was all just stuff that I was interested in learning about myself. I don't think this is actually helping any of my current issues.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah.
but that's why I have you. I sit around and we can just talk about trauma uh, for fun,
Yeah, for fun.
as opposed, we don't have to have a result by the end.
No.
Uh, I would like to say, hello everyone. Welcome. Magical Talking Head Podcast, the only podcast in the world that is not about hearing tests, but will apparently use up half an episode talking about hearing test and hearing test adjacent properties. And don't all of you act like this isn't very on brand for us. I'm Tony,
And I'm William, and this is episode 735.
735.
You
Um, and here we are,
after all these years.
at Peter's Donuts. Uh, For those of you just joining us, we talk about our hearing tests. Since I haven't had one in 25 years, there's just been a lot of silence recently. Um, no, we have a hat. It is magical in that it has its own email address, themagicaltalkinghat@gmail.com. And people write into that email address, themagicaltalkinghat@gmail.com, with stuff, notes, comments, questions, topics, whatever they feel like. The hat magically on its own forwards the emails to us. We read them, talk about them until we're bored, and that's it. And new thing I want to put out there, um, most of our listeners, as far as we know, actually know us in real life. Some of you don't, or whatever, but at least for me, I know it's highly variable in terms of what contact information they have for me. Some of these people I know in real life, but haven't seen in years. Some of these people I know in real life and I talk to regularly via text or email or whatever. Um, for those of you who don't have that kind of contact information for either of us or for one of us, or who don't know us, if you ever do want to tell us something and you're like, I don't want to put it on a blog or whatever, we have a small enough listener base that you can email us and we'll listen. If you ever want to email the hat and say, like, this is not for the podcast, this is a private thing or whatever, do it. We'll read it. I mean, I don't, and I'll probably reply, but I mean, I can't promise it'll be useful. But I feel like we are a small enough thing that everybody should have a line of communication to us that doesn't have to be public. And that email address, I've worked out a deal with the hat, and it's willing to do this for us. So I just thought I'd put that, because every once in a while it comes up where I will see somebody and I'm like, oh, I haven't seen you in years, and they're like, yeah, I meant to tell you things, but I didn't have access except on your podcast, and I didn't want to talk there. Here we are. So I thought I'd put that out there. Anyway, how was your week? We had pancakes today. Well, I had. Did you have any pancakes?
Did not have it.
I had pancakes and a piece of French toast. We went to IHOP on accident because I went there on autopilot, but it was tasty. It was nice.
Let's see. Let's see. We did watch some things. I know we did.
What did you watch?
Well, I just don't remember. I need to like write it down like you do on my phone so I can say, oh yeah, we watched this thing. It must not have
didn't
made
tell me at breakfast, so
I know, and it must not have made much of an impression. Like, as I did say, Abby's playing Diablo 4, and we're always watching like documentaries of various kinds that I don't often talk about because nobody's interested in what documentaries I'm watching. But it seems like we watched. Oh yeah, we watched The Heretic. What? What's the matter?
I'm excited. I was sorry you hadn't seen it before. I talked about it. I saw this.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
This hit me. I had a strong.
I'm pretty
I
sure
was
I saw it because of what you said about it.
okay. Okay, so tell me, talk. What did you think?
Well, I mean, I thought it was very well made. First of all, the acting was all very good. I thought
Everybody. I'm kind of gonna. I mean, I know two of the three main ones, but like watching them in that, I'm like, I'm gonna pay attention to these actors.
Yeah,
going
yeah.
forward.
And I thought it was well written, well put together. There were a few things I would have done different to make certain moments more earned, in my opinion. But
Okay.
I mean, it's like this is very interesting and quite good. I mean, I think it's one of those movies that certain people like myself and Abby are both these types of people who will watch this, and even if there are issues we have with it, artistically, it's gonna provoke some conversation. And I'm not gonna say that all of the philosophical stuff in the film was like groundbreaking or anything, but
No.
it's perfectly provocative. And we like films like that. We like films that aren't just, oh, that was fun and we're done talking about it.
Yeah, I was thinking about it, and
Yeah.
it was one of those that as soon as we finished it, we had a conversation, and that's usually a good sign. And it wasn't a conversation about it being terrible.
Right. Right. So yeah, we liked it.
I have recently heard an analysis that feels like the third act kind of was just like fell apart a little bit, and I get that, but I think it's another one of those. You and I talked about this with other things earlier today. Whatever the final result was never going to be as impressive as what we were like.
Yeah,
it's a landing that would have been impossible to stick perfectly, and it's fine. I mean, I think it was a coherent ending that gave a very interesting finale.
yes,
I would
yes.
agree. It wasn't quite the promise of the first part of the movie in the same way, but then again, one could argue that's something of the point in it. The other thing is, I will say, and this is, I'm sure a huge swaths of people who watch this feel this way. there were everything they said that I knew of was accurate, but there were some very important, I think, missing pieces of key establishing information about the history of Monopoly that was left out, because it is a really interesting and kind of tragic history that I feel wasn't in there. And I know a lot of us landlord game stands were upset that they didn't give the whole picture
Yeah, sure.
in this. Secret Galaxy did a great job of the history of Monopoly if you really want all the details.
Eh,
It is a really interesting thing. I'm being facetious, and I'm only saying that because I can't see the audience. I only have William to go on, and William's face is like I'm genuinely saying some useful. This
No,
whole
I know.
thing was a joke,
I know
but I will
that.
say the history of the landlord game is fascinating, and Secret Galaxy does have a good video on it.
And that is
And
a
I
great
did
channel, by the way. People should check
it
that
is a
channel
good channel.
out
It's a
regardless,
really fun
because
channel if you like pop culture stuff and old pop culture stuff. I
they're
watch
very good.
every one they
Yeah, they're
do.
great.
And sometimes I learn cool stuff about things I already thought I knew about. But when I was watching it, I was genuinely like, "But you didn't mention this," because I do think it's fascinating.
It is
But
fascinating.
yeah, the history of that game is weird, and I actually paused it and turned to Trish. I'm like, "What they didn't tell you is the landlord game actually you could play it to it and this whole other thing." But anyway, um
Yeah, we did see that. We liked it.
real blown away by Hugh Grant in it, because it's like he he's still charming, and he's like from jump clearly the bad guy. Like there's no question. He he somehow is like a version of Hannibal Lecter that you still think is probably cool. Like and only Hugh Grant could do it.
Yeah.
It's he took all of those rom-coms he made and all the charisma out of that and put that into just being this fiend that's still just kind of a nice dude. Like it's so
Well,
it
I
was
mean,
amazing performance.
the character on paper kind of demands him, because
Oh
I mean
yes.
that's kind of the point of the whole thing, and I don't want to give anything away, but when you watch it and you realize, the larger point he was trying to make and the questions he's asking near the end, it's like it the character had to be like that, and it is hard to imagine another actor who could be that. It really
It
is.
it is one of those few times where I'm like, is a hard this is a difficult acting role. And not because it'd be difficult to go through, like it's traumatic to play or whatever, but because there is nuance here that is necessary, not just improve. This character doesn't work without pulling off the nuance in a way that people can see.
Yep.
And he nailed it. I have a lot of things I can say about this movie, but it's mostly just him. He's amazing. But I do like they played a real fun game. They did real well of establishing the two other characters and then sort of pivoting on you. Like you really got good sort of establishing senses of who they were, and then as the movie went on, you got to be surprised in ways that felt earned. But there's a fun sort of if you think one of the girls is like this and one is like this, and as it goes it kind of like
Yeah.
it's interesting in fun sort of subtle ways. um
Yeah.
and I do lament it is of such it is, I think, doing an interesting and fairly respectful uh and intellectual thing with some very radioactive topics.
Yeah.
And so there are a lot of people that, for a lot of different reasons, won't like this movie or won't watch this movie because of misconceptions.
Mm.
And in some cases, misconceptions while you watch it. Like, I mean, like I had this whole Trish was just like, we were talking about like why did it have to be Mormons, and I'm like, it absolutely had to be Mormons, having nothing to do with the tenets of their faith. the
Right.
the the role that the Latter-day Saints play in modern American society hits the perfect spot of the Venn diagram of the perfect kind of faith to put in this movie. But it didn't have to be about that, them. It has nothing to do with their beliefs and their actions. It is just they have all the right components for a generic religion that would fit this role. And so I
Yeah,
feel so bad of people who are like, I was that way. The original reason I partly wasn't into it is I don't believe in LDS doctrine at all, but I grew up surrounded by it and had so many friends who believe it, and I understand their belief. And I'm like, I won't watch the Book of Mormon. And I've heard some of it's really cool or whatever, and I mean I've watched them make fun of other religions, but I'm just like, I don't want a full. I've read up on it, and I'm like, I don't think it's saying anything wrong. I think it's accurate, but I'm
but
just like, I don't want to watch making fun of Mormons for two
yeah,
hours.
but even the two young ladies had a brief thing about it, right?
Right?
Like,
They had a thing about
oh,
some
the
of the
Book of
songs were
Mormon,
cool.
that South Park thing with, oh, I watched it and I thought some of the songs were pretty funny. I mean,
Yeah,
which I think reflects the kind of what there's like half of the Mormons think, oh, this is actually quite funny, and so some of
yeah,
the other
yeah,
half
yeah.
are offended.
And we've just got one of the major filmmakers is married to a LDS lady, and another
Mm.
one who was formerly in the church and still has like. There's a lot of stuff involved here, but I get it. I mean, I'm not decrying anyway. I see a tragedy here that this movie will be misunderstood or not seen by people who are like, I don't want anything to do with that, or I don't want it in a bad light. Or this came up recently. Uh, I don't remember what it was, a what culture video. I watched a lot, but it was something about movies that recently like bombed hard for whatever. And what one thing that came up was The Apprentice, which is the biopic of Trump that just happened last year, I think. And uh Sebastian Stan plays him. And apparently Sebastian Stan did a good enough job. He got an Oscar nomination for it. But the movie bombed. And I'm sitting here going, I mean, yeah, I didn't want to see it. But they pointed out one of the main reasons it probably bombed is people who don't like Trump don't want to see a movie about him right now because they don't they don't want to spend their free time thinking about it. And people who do like Trump don't want to see a biopic where he's shown negatively, which apparently this one he is, at least to some degree. So this is a movie for at least zero Americans. And I was like, yeah, I didn't
Yeah.
think about that. But like,
Yeah.
no one would want to see that movie for different reasons. But
Sure. I
like,
mean, and there are independents who just aren't going to care at all. I mean,
yeah, yeah.
there's no audience for it. That's correct. Yeah.
Although to be fair, I think the number of these people in this country who are like, I have a pretty chill, neutral opinion of Donald Trump is probably a pretty small number lately.
Oh, oh, oh.
I feel
Is it
I
really?
sense that, but I've been incredibly wrong about how this country feels before, so who knows? I got some things here too, so but I am so happy you saw The Heretic. I'm a little annoyed. That would have been half of our conversation at breakfast.
I'm sorry, I forgot to bring it up.
Didn't even, but yeah. We did talk. I am now caught up on Severance. There's not a lot that you can say without spoiling shit or making no sense, depending on how you do it. Um, I liked it. The second half I was not as good. And I was just telling you that I think a lot of these strange sci-fi and fantasy like mystery weird shows that seem really exciting, about a season and a half in, they start to sort of spiral out of control. And I think it's because they have to start giving answers, and the answers can't be as cool as the hype has been, you know?
Mm-hmm,
But
mm-hmm.
it's all right, and it's fun. And if this had been the ending of the series, it would have been kind of ambiguous, but I could have gone with it. I kind of see it.
I
Like
agree with that, by the way. Yeah.
it could have worked. I would have been like, I could have, but I'm also one of the people who played the original Mass Effect 3 ending and thought it was fine. So who knows? I project a lot of things onto endings and then I'm fine. So it's not a thing. But knowing there's another season and knowing there was always going to be, but like it's official, I'm like, I don't enjoy the idea of where we go from this.
Mm.
This leaving it there, but like I don't know. A lot of the reveals weren't that interesting. I don't know where we go from here. It more and more started feeling like later seasons of Westworld, which I didn't even watch, but I read up on them, and it was like I'm really glad I didn't watch them. Like I don't know. I will almost certainly watch the third season, but depending on how it goes, I might be out. I asked you earlier in his bed. I said, "Is this a Lost?" Because it's starting to feel like it might be a Lost, and I don't want it to. It seems like they don't know where they're going yet,
Mm.
and I don't like a mystery that you introduce and you don't have an answer.
Yeah.
Like you have to. It's this is the thing, and I people really love that Choose Your Own Adventure Bandersnatch movie on Netflix. That was a Black Mirror thing, and I hated it. And the reason I hated it was very simple: is every ending was a different ending. Like it wasn't like there was a story and there was an answer and each one just gave you sort of a different perspective like every time the answer. So I was like, so there's no story. It's a bunch of very short stories that by themselves aren't super interesting, but there's no actual story here. And so it's the same thing. If you're like, oh, what's going on, at some point I'm going to want to know what's going on. And if you don't know what's going on yet, then everything you're hinting at here means nothing because you're hinting at a thing that doesn't exist. And I feel like Severance is hinting at a thing that doesn't currently exist.
Yeah, I get that impression too. And part of it is for season 2, a lot of things happen, and by the end you're you are told what they're trying to do, who who the main person they're trying to get to do it, why they're doing it, and all this. And then if you look back, maybe if you watch the season again, episode for episode, you're like, now how did this thing they did serve that purpose that they finally revealed at the end? Why how did this thing serve that purpose? And you know, one of the things that was required, and I don't think this would be giving anything away, is for Mark, the main character in the office, to perform a certain task that we almost never saw him performing, and it wasn't apparent how each thing they were doing was going to get him to do it. In fact,
Yeah.
some of the things specifically took him away from the office. So, I mean, it was kind of incomprehensible in those ways. So that's what kind of indicated to me, like, they don't, I don't think they have a plan. I think they think that this, like season 2 was, let's show them a whole bunch of cool things, which they did. They were cool. I loved watching it, but it didn't feel like a tight kind of, they really
Yeah,
know
and
what
we
they're
did
doing
we
that
did
first.
pull things in, but some of them felt like I can imagine somebody sitting around saying, "How are we going to tie this in?
Yeah,
Let's
right.
do this." Um,
Right.
and the side version of that, I meant to mention this to you at breakfast actually. So much of the coolness of it is the weird aesthetic choices.
Mm,
And I guess part of me was like, what's that going to be about?
mm,
And I think the answer is ultimately going to be they thought it was fun to do weird. I mean, like some general things, but like certain things, scenes, like why were those people dressed this way, or like why did you do it that way? Oh, because we thought it looked wacky and cool and mysterious.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I think that is what we did that, and that's such a disappointment.
Right,
You're like,
because
this is a strange company with mysterious practices. So guess what? They also have the fashion sense of Willy Wonka for no like just random shit.
yeah, and
It's like
okay,
it's like when I used to do vampire games and there's a clan in the game. Their whole thing is that they're insane, and everybody who ever played one, including me, just made them wacky, and that was the insane thing. But
just
that's
made them
not insane.
wacky.
One time I ran a game where somebody played one of these guys and he gave him an actual neurological condition and played him as a very normal person except for that one thing. And my mind was blown. I was like, you mean he's actually just got a mental illness like he's supposed to? He's not acting like Harley Quinn all the time? Like, wow. And that's the whole thing. I think Lumen just likes dressing as Harley Quinn, and I'm kind of annoyed that that's the
All right,
reason
well, okay.
they're wearing the Harley Quinn
And
outfit.
so when you asked me if this was like Lost, the reason I said yes was because one of the things I used to say to people about Lost was, you guys, it's basically a haunted island. And as soon as you say it's a haunted island, you can do anything you want. I mean, it's I I would use, like,
Yeah.
here's an example. If you're making a haunted house movie, all you have to say, all that has to be established is it's a haunted house, and you can literally do anything you want, and nobody's going to care. But if you start thinking, no, no, it's not just a haunted island, it's this, and you start thinking there's a formula, no. Now this is the same. There's a cult of some kind associated with this workplace, and I think the writers
That's a
think,
little bit spoilers. Be careful. We're getting too
okay,
close to real
oh, sorry,
spoilers.
sorry, but I think to the
That is like a
writers,
mid season one revelation, I would say.
you think so? Oh, I thought it was really early
Was
in
for
season
me. I
one.
was surprised.
Oh, I'm very sorry. Okay, I didn't mean to give anything away, but I think the point I was going to make was, I think to the writers,
Of course, there's a cult.
I think to the writers, it's like, that's all you need to know. So now we can do whatever we want because that's how cults work, right? It does feel like that's the case. It does feel like that's the case.
This is like I just the other night I was talking with people about the horror movie thing of like cell phones fuck up horror movies.
Mm-hmm.
And so they people bend over backwards of like, oh yeah, the meteor shower is gonna mess it up, or I've got metal in my walls for some reason, apropos of nothing, or every haunted house now has to really be far away because it has to be so far you don't get a signal anymore. But then the smart ones are just like, there's a ghost. The ghost can make your phone not work.
Yeah, right. The ghost can do
The
anything.
ghost can even let you call, and then just when you're like, we're saved, their voice gets real low suddenly, and they laugh, and you're like, oh shit, ghost fuck up phone. Like,
Yeah.
and that is an unassailable plot decision.
Yes. Yes.
You go ahead and argue against me that ghosts can fuck up phone. You're like, technically, actually, I think you'll find ghosts walk through walls, make a teacup float, a spooky laugh. Ghosts can no fuck up phone. I have read on the subject, cannot do it. Cold
Sorry.
spots, yes. Ghosts cannot fuck up phone. Certainly can't talk on one. What are they talking on? Their ghost phone? I mean, be serious. Like, you can't argue this. It's the same way you can't argue time travel in Doctor Who. The answer is always a wizard did it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And you can't fight against that. And they keep trying. Stop it. If you have a ghost, it's insulting to the ghost to imply that you have to bring in another option. The ghost is like, you can't trust me to kill the cell reception? Have you seen the coverage? USL? I mean, Jesus Christ.
But this is what I'm saying.
This is not my first haunting.
To some writers, if it's haunted, if it's time travel, if it's a cult, if there's all these things, that if that's your plot device, it means you can do whatever you want. And for some people, I mean, I think the haunted one's pretty safe.
Don't even. for everybody who's not you and me, this is where all of this falls apart. You and I are 100% right in these things, but we're the only ones who care. We're like, no rules, fine. Some rules, well, then the rules have to make sense.
Yeah,
And
right.
other people are like, as long as 50 to 70% of the rules make sense, I'm good. And I'm like, no, that's not how rules work.
I know, but
If you have some rules that don't work in the system, you have no rules. Let's stop pretending. And
right,
you
right,
and I
right.
understand this, but no one else cares.
Well,
It's
I
just
don't,
you and me.
because there are, just like with
They're all
Lost,
wrong.
just
But
like with Lost, there are theorists, right, who want to guess how everything works, and those people care, and they care a lot, and they get really disappointed if it doesn't turn out that their little pet theory was correct. When again, I think you guys would save yourself a lot of trouble and anxiety if you just realized, no, this is just a haunted witchamajigger, and that they're just anything can happen. That's all
yeah,
you need
but
to
the
know.
guys who need to realize that are the writers. And I don't know if the writers. Because again,
Well,
stop trying to put rules in.
yeah.
I don't
Well,
get mad at Doctor Who anymore.
so you,
I used to
but
get mad at
okay.
Doctor Who, and then I'm like, wait, they don't have rules. It's
Now
wibbly. They
here's the
literally
difference.
invented the phrase wibbly wobbly, timey
Yeah,
wimey.
yeah. But here's the difference between Lost and Severance so far is the Lost producers would like interact with people and kind of promise that there were rules, kind of promise that there were going to be answers. Nobody in
Yeah.
Severance has come along and said, hey, if you guys have questions, we're going to have a whole bunch of answers. Nobody has said that. Nobody has really promised that unless you think the show has. I'm not sure the show has, but maybe you think it has.
No, I'd say that's fair. I just don't care about that. I mean, it's helpful if they told me up front.
Yeah, okay.
But if I get to the end and I'm like, you made rules, but not enough, or you broke them, and they said, we never said we wouldn't do that, I'm like, that doesn't make the show I just watched any less shitty.
Sure. I get you.
Or as if you get to the end and I'm like, you made rules and they made sense, and they're like, yeah, we were kind of making them up, but we wanted to make sure they fit together. I'd be like, I don't care. That doesn't make the show I watched any less awesome. It's
Right.
all about me. As the end user, it's all about my experience. I don't care how the sausage is made. If you told me that the Princess Bride killed 40 orphans to get that sword fight scene, I would be fine. It's a good movie. Just saying.
It was a good movie.
It's a very good movie. I mean, they died for a good reason. This is they are more famous than me, and I am a full ass human, not an orphan.
What is wrong with you?
I tripped. I tripped in my line of reasoning. I stumbled.
What happened there?
There was a left turn I did not.
Oh my god.
Orphans are humans.
Yeah, let's make that perfectly clear.
I would like to make this unequivocal.
No, that's got to be the title of the episode now, because we have to make it absolutely clear.
It does, or we're ruined.
We don't want.
I want to make it extremely clear. Orphans are, human orphans. You aren't. Other species don't become human when their parents die. That's not even a political issue. I just don't want people thinking I misunderstand science that bad. All humans are humans, even the orphans. Orphans are humans. Oh, I've ruined our podcast. What were we talking about? So yeah, Severance. It's not quite lost. It might be later.
Might be later.
We'll have to see.
Oh gosh.
Um, there's a woman who features very heavily in the show in places. Um, to not spoil anything, I will tell you, it is the actor who plays Miss Casey. You should know who that is.
I know who that's.
Um, so sometimes you watch somebody in something and later you watch them in a different thing and you're a pervert and one of the things you watch them in they were naked and so you're watching them another thing and your brain's like it's weird to watch this. I've literally seen this person naked. It's very strange to watch them doing this. And if you're a gross person, you say that out loud. I'm not gross like that. But I did have to say something out loud recently when we were watching because I said, this is so weird for me because I've seen that woman like a dozen naked ones of her fighting a bunch of other naked people.
What?
She was a major character in the first season of Altered Carbon, the sci-fi series that involved creating clones of your body, and the climactic thing involves a huge fight of just a bunch of naked clones as they get out of the vat. And so like a whole bunch of them are her. And but like I've also had this experience. I've seen a lot of naked Joel Kinnemans also. But like he just does action stuff. It's very weird to see like very straight laced dramatic performance and like weren't you just like a crowd of naked yous like fighting dudes with knives and shit?
She
So
was
it's a
in.
very
She
unusual
was.
experience.
She was in that TV show. Is it was Doll's House or Dollhouse? It was a.
Dollhouse.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was a. She was in that. um,
Wow.
she was really good
That
in it.
is very interesting given thoughts I had related to Severance this season.
Oh, she was
That
super good in
that
it.
show popped into my head.
Yeah. I'd still recommend the show
She's
though.
been a
I
few things. It's just the first thing I ever saw her in was the thing where there was a dozen naked ones fighting. And so it's always jarring. But I think she's good. I've seen her in a few things now. I think she's
uh,
good.
I'd still recommend it to people. I think it's a good
Yeah.
show. It's an interesting show. And I've discovered that the ending can say how you respond to the ending can say a lot about your personality. I've
It's
come to
it's
realize that.
it's like your favorite Ninja Turtle.
What 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 do you mean?
Your favorite Ninja Turtle. So
Says a lot about your personality? Oh,
the
I didn't know
four
that.
humors that Crack After Hours did a great video on this. The four humors, as they were believed in antiquity, correspond to four personality types that show up throughout media.
Yeah.
Another version is Sex in the City. The four are and people are you a Carrie? Are you a Miranda? Are you a Samantha? Or
I
whatever.
think the Wizard of Oz a little bit.
Yeah. And then I think Scooby Doo gets that way.
Maybe a little, yeah.
But the Ninja Turtles is the famous one because if you were a certain age and you were a boy and you weren't William, um, that was your thing. You frequently gravitated to a group of boys who you would each have like that was the balanced group was to have one of each of them. And everybody had a favorite Ninja Turtle, again, if you weren't William.
Did
And
you?
I don't want to gender this too much. The number of women of a certain age I know who have their favorite Ninja Turtle. And most of the continuing diehard Ninja Turtle fans of my age range that I know now are women. I don't know what that means, but it's true.
Did you have a favorite Ninja Turtle?
Mine has varied a little bit. I used to think I was a Leonardo. This actually makes sense pretty well. I used to think I was a Leonardo, and then I accepted my position as a Donatello, and nowadays I might just be a Michelangelo.
Well,
I'm
now
not a Raphael. Only if you're a Raphael, you're a sociopath. But
you have to
outside
understand, a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was kind of after my time. I'm a little too
yeah,
old
you
for
are
that.
very old.
Yeah. So I don't know if you can exclude me from the list since I didn't even have a chance to be the age that
I
would
mean, I
watch the
was it.
TV show.
Who was your favorite monkey? I guess I don't know. What's your thing?
I
What
don't
do you
know what
do
my
back
thing
then?
is.
Who was your favorite member of the Rat Pack? Is that your? I don't know. You're old. What did you watch back then?
Your
Which
favorite dinosaur.
which cigarette spokesman on the Dumont network was your favorite? Is that? Oh,
Could
that
have been a
was a
Muppet.
thing
Could have been a Muppet, I think.
with our one of our United Way families this year. There was a kid, and the kid was really into dinosaurs, and Trish was like, "I'm having trouble picking them apart." Because his favorite was an Ankylosaurus, and I was like, "It's an Ankylosaurus," and she's like, "Yeah, but it kind of looks like it." And I was like, "Were you not a dinosaur kid?
Hmm.
I thought you had to be a dinosaur kid in this. Maybe again a boy thing, but I was like, yeah, here." And I had to guide her through making sure she got. I was like, she's like, "I only know like 3 names of dinosaurs." I was like, "I'm not even much of a dinosaur kid, and I can do a dozen at least." Like,
Wow. I
I
can't do a
think,
dozen.
I think, well, because also being of a certain age means, well, and again, maybe this is a toy because back in the day they were very gendered on their toys, but all the toys of my childhood thought dinosaurs should be involved. There
Mm.
were whole cartoons about it, and um, but no, Ankylosaurus kicks ass, and Ankylosaurus has like no neck, and the big thing is it has the spike mace tail.
Mm.
I think she was making up with a Stegosaurus, and I was like, "You Philistine, totally different creature." Favorite
Yes.
dinosaur?
I never really had a favorite dinosaur.
I'm trying to include you, William, in the human race here. I'm trying,
Uh,
but you've
favorite
given me nothing to work with.
something. I must have had a favorite something.
Do you know do you know those comics that are aliens and they say things in weird speech? They're all blue. They're little comic strips.
Mm-mm.
It's a popular web comic. I actually have a drawing of them that says "Chaos is how I learn." That just has one of them like on the floor with some blocks. Ah, well then you're useless to me. There's a TV show of it. They animated a full ass TV show. It's on Apple TV Plus.
Oh,
So let's see what that's about. Um, all right, we should do our weekly quest.
yes. Side quest.
Yes, yeah. Your main quest is just I don't know, as you are. Everybody, keep that up. Unless it's bad, then don't. Something recently brought me back to that same thing from the episode of Obsessive Pop Culture Disorder where Dan's like, "I want to make my position on drugs very clear. No one should ever do drugs. Unless you want to, I don't care." And I was like, "Yeah, that's how this should go." All right. Pick a number.
3.
Fulfilled the brief. All right. Which of these do you think is 3?
That one.
Is this one? No,
Yeah,
it's that's clearly 3.
I had a favorite Muppet, Kermit. Does that count for anything? Let's see, Kermit.
Not really, and less so given that it's Kermit.
Hmm.
That's like having like your favorite Mario character is Mario. Like,
But that doesn't that say anything? Doesn't that mean anything?
no, it's literally the one choice that means nothing. I guess it says something in that it means nothing. You're like, I like a thing, and this is the nearest part to that thing here. I like just an average mascot.
Yeah,
Whatever's the first thing with your
that,
property is
that
there.
probably says it all, doesn't it?
Your
Huh.
favorite Smurf is probably Smurf.
Uh, I didn't have a favorite Smurf,
Here,
which I
focus
guess is
on
the same.
this.
Which I guess is the same thing as what you said.
Oh, this will be interesting. Review the archival data. Binge watch your favorite show with zero shame. I mean, first of all, side quest, I don't do anything with zero shame. And
Oh,
if I'm honest, I wouldn't want to. It's kind of a kink of mine.
oh, I
But
see.
second of all, if I was going to be ashamed, It would not be a binge watching my favorite show. I would watch my favorite show, except I don't really watch stuff. This will be a popular one. The quote on the bottom is from one Ms. River Tan. Seems she said at one point, "No power in the verse can stop me."
Hmm.
From binge watching my favorite show.
Uh,
I do
Does
I do think it's a sweet idea. I think it's fun to be like, I like that show. Let's go watch that show again. And then be into it. If you're like me, you might not be into it anymore. And some things you're scared to rewatch because you want to continue to be into them. And you think you'll lose that if you rewatch it. But we'll see. All right, now that we've done the side quest, I got a bunch of shit I didn't talk about. Like literally my whole list. We
oh,
forgot about it.
sorry.
No, it's okay. I just don't know how I forgot, but it is time. So, and it's all movies and stuff. Don't worry about it, people. So we'll save that for next time. Um, because there are things on there. There's probably going to be a lot more since then. My prescription is ready.
Oh, good.
Pharmacist.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go get that. Um, and the rest of you, I hope you have a lovely week. Please email us. We didn't get to an email this week, but we hope to soon. I really like when we're doing that. And to do that, we need more emails. So please email us, themagicaltalkinghat@gmail.com. Also, go to the blog, themagicaltalkinghat.com. I'll notice it. William might not. Or go to YouTube and comment there. I'll notice it. William definitely won't. Um, and then listen again next week. But the biggest takeaways here: one, orphans are humans. And two is clearly I love you guys more than William does.